Hey everybody, welcome to the Backup Game Day show. It is your ticket to accelerating IT transformation through backup. I'm Paul Garangelli.
And I'm Michael Wilkie.
Michael, I think the question on everybody's mind is how can backup accelerate IT transformation? I mean, really, let's face it, the game has changed, right? And really, so have the rules, because backup is no longer just a defensive tactic. It is an offensive strategy that can really deliver game-changing business results if, and it's a big if you have the right plays. Now, Michael, right out of the gate, let me ask you the first question. Are you ready for it?
Yep.
It's a doozy.
Okay.
I'll bring it. What does that really mean, game-changing business results?
So great question. Well, look, we've been talking about backup and recovery for years, and usually the conversation is around too much data, too little time, tape, and disk. But what's changed, and don't get me wrong, we need backup transformation to address data growth, more stringent service level requirements, and to keep cost containment across the board. In fact, it's those pressures, frankly, that keep deduplication and disk-based backup solutions in the highlight reel. But equally important is that backup, when you do it right, can actually drive business value. And that's the game-changing part of this show that we hope our audience sticks around for the entire show to hear that story. You know, the fact of the matter is that backup has gotten a whole lot more relevant because of its impact to business in ways that may surprise a lot of people.
Awesome. And looking forward to finding out what some of those surprises are going to be a little bit later on the show. All right, here's what we know so far. The playing field, definitely changing. And so today we have a lot of ground to cover. We want to talk about the following. One, how new players in IT and business rules are changing backup practices. Two, how backup can accelerate virtualization, IT transformation, and IT as a service. How backup can become an IT MVP in your environment. I mean, really. And finally, how to create your own backup game plan. Now, we have assembled an all-star team of experts who are really going to break it down for us and give you the play-by-play on all of this and a lot more. You fired up?
I'm fired up.
Good to go?
Good to go.
Game on?
Game on.
All right, let's make it happen. Joining us right now is our first guest, and that is Brian Babineau. Brian is Vice President of Enterprise Strategy Group. Good to have you on board.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no absolutely. Brian, you've been in backup and recovery for a long time. You know what's happening out there in the field. Give us your scouting report, if you will. What are you seeing out there?
You guys don't mind if I start with a little data, do you?
No, we love data.
Yeah,
Bring
no
on
problems.
the data.
So look, our scouting report based on what IT is spending on, where their investment priorities are, really starts with looking at their challenges. And every year, data protection is a top IT challenge. Mm-hmm. And the reason why is because of the massive data growth that we have. Organizations still have a fixed window to protect that. So when we look at investment priorities, everybody's trying to figure out what they do from a data protection standpoint to figure out how do we squeeze more data, protect it in a very specified period of time. Now, the next question that we always get asked, is data growth real? And our response is absolutely. It doesn't matter what size organization you are. So for example, we look at organizations that are under 1,000 employees. That on average, 50% of them have data growth at least 30% per year, and they're starting from a basis of about 10 terabytes. Wow. Now you fast forward and look at organizations above 1,000 employees, over half of them are dealing with data sizes that are about 100 terabytes. And their data growth is the same, 30, 35%. We're talking about massive data growth and still trying to get it protected in that short window.
Right. Now, you talked about the need to reduce backup times and also keeping pace with the capacity of data to protect. Is this where deduplication kind of comes into play?
Yes, it absolutely is. This solution, you know, these technologies that reduce data is the only way we can actually start to either keep that window in the massive data growth, that backup window, or actually accelerate, shorten it down. We out there see, you know, from a statistics standpoint, 3/4 of organizations are currently using a plan to use backup solutions that have deduplication within them over the next 24 months.
Wow.
So just like disk became a standard in the backup process, you know, a few years ago, now it surpassed tape. We see as a standard as deduplication becomes as ubiquitous of a technology, and it really addresses that pain point of getting more data protected in a short period of time.
Now, Michael, would you concur? What's your take on this?
I totally concur. You know, what we set up at the top of the show was that these problems need to be solved first before we can start to move forward to, you know, kind of the game-changing part that we're going to talk about here in a minute. But let's hear from a couple of customers, Loomis Armor and American Tire, who have deployed these solutions and found a way to get over these perennial problems, get above the weeds, and start looking at the bigger picture.
Awesome. Roll the video, guys.
some of the issues that we had before we implemented the EMC solutions, we were not making our backup windows. We were having all kinds of problems with restores. Even out in the field, we were relying on our internal customers to swap tapes and to back things up and make sure that the tapes were being rotated properly. Even though we were monitoring some of that, it was still very difficult to substantiate that that was being done. And that's when we engaged at EMC to find a better solution to what we were, how to back up our data.
We only had VMware for dev and test. Once we started going into production, we didn't have a good way of backing up image level backups for VMware or any kind of backups for VMware. So, we brought in EMC and they came up with a solution of Avamar. That's when they said the new version basically can solve this problem for you. So we looked at it, we did a POC on it, and basically it worked really good. So now we're doing all our backups image level with Avamar.
The backup process for us before was more like a black hole. I really didn't know what was being backed up, when it was being backed up, whether or not they were good, whether or not they'd been validated. It was getting to the point we had like 2 or 3 people that were doing nothing but trying to make sure our backups were being completed across the entire board. That was from the branches even all the way to the corporate side. With both the products in there, Avamar and Data Domain, I've been able to sleep better at night. Before I was always worried about whether or not things were being done. Now I know they're being done. It's just we put the solution in and it just worked.
Now with the EMC products, we don't have to worry about that. We run smarter, faster, and simpler.
I'll go back about 3 or 4 years. We had basically a tape model. We had a very disparaged storage environment. We really, for lack of a better term, would buy an appliance for the type of storage, whether it be a tier 3 or tier 2. This was before cloud or virtualization, and the storage layer was very pervasive. Our goal initially was to try to find a strategy for the disparate systems we had, especially in the storage area. So building the model to get the data replicated was our first step, but quickly we realized that that was only part of the story. And then when we looked at data domain and how we would manage deduplication and archiving is another piece of how we're trying to be successful, again, it was really a complete package to do that together. But I think if you provide proven success, you demonstrate capability by delivering on time and quality. That goes a long way with the CEO and the CFO and the COO, and looking how you're delivering for them. The last 2 or 3 years, we've pushed the envelope on virtualization, how we've been able to replicate to our secondary data center, what we've done with the elimination of tape, and all those seem very tactical. But at the end of the day, if we can't recover and fail over and support the business, they get nervous.
Well, Michael, that video really seems to support a lot of what Brian was talking about earlier.
Absolutely, and that's just 2 customers. There's many more great stories out there just like that.
Fantastic. Well, that all sounds really good, and EMC definitely has every base covered when it comes to deduplication appliances and software. But where does the offensive strategy come into play? The game changer that we were talking about earlier? Well, we're going to get to that and a lot more coming up right after this message.
When you don't transform your backups keep failing and you get frustrated. When you get frustrated, you try to relax. When you try to relax, you fall asleep and sleepwalk. When you fall asleep and sleepwalk, you wake up in a biker bar and you have to join a gang. When you have to join a gang, you get a large tattoo of your new gang girlfriend's name on your neck. Don't get a tattoo of your gang girlfriend's name on your neck. Transform your backup with EMC.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Backup Game Day Show. Paul Girangelli, Michael Wilkie, Brian Babineau, and our next guest is Stephen Manley, CTO, EMC Backup and Recovery. Good to have you on board. Thanks for joining us.
I am more excited to be here than a NASCAR driver seeing a left-hand turn.
I like the sound of that. You know these guys, funny man, is that what we got here?
Hilarious.
And a really smart guy. No, seriously, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Now, last segment we talked about deduplication and its importance and how it's coming into play, but that's only part of the story. You are, Stephen, the game changer guy, right?
That's my job.
We need a cape and a big G on his chest, I think, to make it happen. But really, seriously, tell us, what is Game Changer all about? What does that really mean?
So game changing, you're just trying to change how you're doing your business, how you're doing backups, right? And so let's start with where Brian was. A lot more data, right? Deduplication becoming ubiquitous. And make no mistake, deduplicating backup appliances are absolutely a game changer. You can think about your backup environment today as if you're on a treadmill, right? And every day somebody's increasing the speed and they're increasing the angle that you're on that treadmill, and you're barely clinging on to life, right? I mean, Mike knows what I'm talking about.
I just thought I was getting old.
Well, well, we'll see. So anyway, right, that's a game changer, because what deduplicating backup appliances do is it lets you catch your breath. It lets you get back on top of how much data you've got, and it gets your backup windows and your recovery windows down to something reasonable. But the truth is, you're still on that treadmill. You've bought yourself a breath, but you're still on the treadmill. And that leads to that next step of game changing that we're seeing customers moving to. Right? So for example, I want to introduce a new statistic. You know, this is going to be important.
Great.
Time to. That's our new statistic, the time to be able to get things done in a business. If you look at backup, you know, we have old statistics still, right? The most commonly stated one, what's your backup speed? That's the number we all roll out. And you should see how excited people get when we bring up things like recovery speed. And let's face it, we all know you do backups so you can do recoveries, but very rarely do we even talk about recovery speed. But I want to go to the next step beyond, because you're not just doing backups and recoveries just because they're fun. You're doing them to try to accelerate your business. And that's where time to comes into play. Time to be able to virtualize more servers. Time to be able to spin up new applications. Time to be able to drive revenue for your business via IT.
Well, wait a minute. So you're saying that backup can actually impact your time too?
This is exactly what I'm saying. But because think about it. If you're an administrator, you're an application administrator, you're a VM administrator, what's one of the things that slows you down from changing? You're worried about things going wrong. You're worried about risk. You don't know if there's a safety net there for you if something goes wrong. Well, if you have a backup system that you know is fast enough, that you know is reliable enough, that you know will make sure your data is there for you when you need it, how you need it, where you need it, well, you're going to get a lot more comfortable, you're going to get a lot more aggressive, and you're going to go on offense. And as soon as you're on offense, that's the game changer for your business. You're starting to make a difference. So absolutely, backup can be a game changer, not just for IT, but for the business as a whole.
So you want to make sure that backup isn't slowing you down. That makes total sense. But is it really that simple? Am I reading that right?
No.
No, okay.
It's a key component, right? So if you're not fast enough, you got nothing, right? But you know, one of the things you look at is it's not just knowing that it's not just the backup team knowing that the backups are happening, they're reliable, and they're fast enough. Certainly that's important, but again, we're talking about getting the virtualization team and the application team to be more aggressive. So the backup team knowing that the data is secure isn't enough. Those teams have to know it's secure, and they have to know that they're going to be able to get it to it when they need it. And that's really driving that next shift, that next gear is those teams need to be able to have the confidence and the visibility to know that their data is going to be safe for them when they need it, how they need it. They need that confidence for you to really get to that game-changing aspect.
Okay, so they want the confidence, but what other choices do they have than the regular backup team?
It's a good point, right? If you go back a decade, that was your only choice. If you wanted your data protected, if you wanted your data recovered, you were picking up the phone and you were calling the backup team. Now with disk, you know, backup's a lot more accessible to more parts of the organization. And so we see the virtualization team rolling out their own protection solution. The application teams rolling out their own protection solutions. The storage team rolling out their own solutions. Because each one of them, again, they want that visibility, they want that confidence, and they have the ability to do it now. So we're seeing a lot more one-off solutions, a lot more point solutions in the environment.
But I thought everybody wanted a single solution. Brian, are you seeing the same thing with multiple solutions on your end?
You know, with the market trend, and Stephen pointed out that there's an opportunity for time to, and that means people introduce new applications, and there's a diversification application portfolio that has to be protected. And we're seeing more, you know, about 40% of organizations right now actually have a single backup application. That's going to shift to about 25% over the next 2 years. And it's not uncommon for people to say, well, we need to consolidate. We just went through this process with disk, introducing it a few years ago, and then we introduced deduplication, and we started to get more consolidated in our systems. But now we have more diversification of applications. We have more people that want that visibility. So you're going to see more comfort level in adding more backup applications that are actually intuitive or integrated or aware of what's going on in that application level, so they can get, you know, they can keep keep up. They get more than just a breath on that treadmill. They actually get a little bit of a break.
So, Stephen, what's the solution then to all of this?
An excellent question. And I'm going to pop over here to the telestrator, right? So here's kind of what Brian was saying, right? So you got your virtualization team, right? And they're deploying their own disk and they're deploying their own solution because it fits for them, it gives them the visibility, it gets them the confidence, they've rolled their own. Then you get to your app team. The app team, same thing. They're rolling their own solution. The storage team rolling their own. And then your legacy physical server, your backup team still covering that. So each team's feeling pretty good about life, right? They've solved their problems. They're in absolute control of their destiny. Life's good. And then the bottom starts to fall out. So let's say you're running this organization, right? You're the head coach, you're the CIO, and you want to know, all right, where are all my backups? Nobody knows. They're spread all over the place. Who's got access to them? Am I in compliance? I don't even know. Let's say you're the virtualization team. It probably felt fun for a while to be a backup administrator, but then, I got to manage capacity and network bandwidth and offsite copies and versioning, and people are asking me for reports. Wow, that's actually a pretty hard job. And then you're the backup team, and you're looking at this, and you know what you're thinking? You're thinking, one of these days, each of these teams is going to walk into my office and say, yeah, here's this backup app we bought. Can you manage it for us? And you're waking up, and you're suddenly running this incredibly complicated infrastructure. So that's where we see people today with silos that are causing chaos in their environment and wasted money and wasted time.
So where's the transformation come in then?
Here's the transformation, right? So step one, boom, you gotta pull all this out. You gotta say, all right, we are absolutely, as an organization, going to consolidate, right? This big centralized disk pool. Backup team's going to manage that for you. They're going to be your service provider. Of course, the first thing you're going to say is, if I consolidate on that, I've still got to be able to integrate with the tools that these teams are using. Because if I don't integrate, they don't have that confidence, we don't get the time too. So that has to work with every one of these environments. So first you consolidate, then you integrate. Now, then comes the last spot, which is, I still need to know what's going on. It's great that they're all backing up to the same spot, but am I actually meeting my needs? And that's where we get to this central visibility, this central console, the new centralized backup app. And this is where I get the federated control, where the central team can tell you exactly what's going on in the environment, but they've delegated responsibilities to these teams so that they can absolutely have that control, that confidence, that visibility that lets them accelerate.
Best of both worlds.
Yeah, the answer is consolidate, integrate, federate, and now you have yourself a real solution.
Feels a little bit like, what you'd expect from a cloud.
That's a really good point, right? And one of the key steps, really, for backup teams here is a mindset shift, right? Again, we talked a little bit about game changers, moving from defense to offense. One of the mindset shifts we see out of the most successful customers that we work with, the backup team starts to think of themselves as a service provider. They're providing that cloud. And for these teams, they may be providing the end-to-end backup service still with a traditional backup application. In other cases, they may just be providing the storage infrastructure and the centralized visibility. But either way, when they wake up in the morning, they think, how can I help these teams improve their time too? As soon as you do that, that's when things start to move forward.
And so is this what EMC is doing to enable this play?
That's a great question. In fact, this is exactly where EMC is going. So, you've seen a lot of announcements out of EMC, a lot of new plays, a lot of growth. Let's look at this consolidated disk. EMC launched the Data Domain 990, the biggest, baddest, fastest deduplicating appliance on the market, which enables you to consolidate more and more data into one location. Brian's we're talking massive data growth. The Data Domain 990 lets you keep up with and get ahead of that data growth. But it's not just about being big, it's also about being able to carve the system up into smaller pieces so that each of these teams can effectively have their own little part of that system. So again, they have that control, but the central team has the visibility. And you see that out of us with greater and greater quota support and quality of service style management. So that's one step. Get that centralized consolidated storage, keep that growing. The second stage you see is, again, we talked about integration. You need to be able to plug in with these layers here to get faster backups and to give these teams confidence. One of the big things you've seen out of us, Avamar 6.1. Integration with virtual hypervisors. So we're talking about VMware, the fastest VMware backups and the fastest VMware recoveries in the marketplace. We're talking about integration with Microsoft Hyper-V, again, driving forward the best enterprise solution for whatever your virtualized environment is. We're talking about applications. You have big Oracle databases. The fastest way to back up Oracle databases is to your data domain leveraging our Boost client. You're going to be able to get that database backed up quickly. You're going to be able to get it to be recovered quickly. And these teams here are going to have confidence that they can grow their databases and accelerate the business. Talk about storage. Then you can talk about integration with the largest NAS appliances from both EMC and NetApp to be able to get the fastest backups into your backup environment. So you've got that. Then we talk about the backup application, right? That centralized view. And we just launched Networker 8. Changes the game for backup visibility. Right? Because what Networker 8 is bringing to the table is a new infrastructure that scales across these massive environments. Virtualization, non-virtualization, application, the whole kit and caboodle. We're talking about, again, being able to split up the environment so that you can have multiple tenants leveraging that same infrastructure. So that you're talking, again, this team wants to think of themselves as a service provider. This may actually be an actual service provider. Networker 8 really lets them accelerate their business. So again, consolidate, data domain 990. Integrate all of the Avamar and Networker application and virtualization support. And central federated management, again, you're looking at Networker 8.0 and its game-changing abilities.
And then wrap it all with a product like Data Protection Advisor. Seems like that would kind of close it out.
You've got it. Data Protection Advisor giving you that visibility across the entire environment so you can tell your CIO, your head of IT, your lines of business that yes, your data is there when you need it and how you need it, and we've got you covered. Move forward.
I don't know about you guys, but I feel smarter just listening to all that. Is that like
Can't help but feel
unbelievable?
smarter.
Yeah. No, this is kind of like what you were talking about, where sort of the backup is meeting the cloud. Is that really what we're talking about here? Is that what's happening? Backup meeting cloud coming together? And
I think that's a big part of it, right? If you think about cloud, we've got more and more customers who are looking to engage in the cloud in some way. Right, and in some cases that means they want to build out their own private cloud, right? So I'm a company, and I just want to have, again, that cloud-like ethos where I'm trying to serve my users and serve my applications so that I can make the business move faster. We're all about helping them build that cloud. Now, in some cases, they're looking for best-of-breed components, and that's absolutely where you see them rolling in data domains and Networker and Avamar as components in their larger solution as they're rolling their own. In other cases, we've got customers who basically come to us and say, you know what I'd like to be able to do? I'd like to be able to just deploy a chunk of data center, or frankly, my entire data center environment. And this is where you look at things like, on the smaller end, the vSpecs, where we provide the specs to be able to, frankly, roll your own data center.
Well, basically a reference architecture.
A reference architecture that lets you roll your own and know exactly what you're going to get from from being able to deploy virtualization all the way through the protection. Or if you really want it all bundled in one, not just a specification, but an actual product, that's where you look at vBlock. The vBlock lets you go out and say, this is how many virtual machines I can support, and it's going to be able to give you that service level agreement type of guarantee, not just for the performance, not just for the availability, but for the protection as well.
now, is all of this really what makes EMC's playbook such a winning formula, pretty much, would you say?
I certainly think so. I mean, one of the things that we look at EMC is, are we in a position to be able to deliver that time-to metric for our customers? And if you really think about it, we're in the best position to be able to succeed and deliver for our customers, because we are frankly leading the industry in that disk-based backup, that deduplicated disk market, and we are absolutely doubling down to make sure that we continue to drive more value into that part of the stack. Second part is, again, once you get that consolidation, again, it's all about the integration. Well, if you look at what we've been doing lately, integration with VMware. There was an announcement at VMworld about VDP, VMware Data Protector. Under the covers, that's Avamar technology. That's us working as closely as you can possibly work with VMware. There's a reason we're the leading VMware backup solution provider. You look at application support. We're more deeply integrated with applications like Oracle and SAP than anyone else in the industry. You look down at storage. You want to be able to integrate with storage? Well, let's face it, EMC has a fair amount of storage to be able to integrate with. So, we absolutely believe that we're going to be there on the integration front. And then on that federated management, again, you've seen the aggressive growth in the networker. Michael talked a little bit about Data Protection Advisor. We give you that central visibility. So we have all the components. We're playing offense because we're moving to where the market's heading. And we have all the integration points to be able to succeed. So, when I think about what's making us win, I mean, that is absolutely it. That's your boom, there goes the dynamite type of segment.
Awesome. Well, great job. Thanks, Stephen, very much. We're going to be back to wrap things up right after this.
When you don't transform your backup, you can't protect your mission-critical virtual environment. When you can't protect your mission-critical virtual environment, your VMware admin laughs at you. When your VMware admin laughs at you, you get depressed and let yourself go. When you let yourself go, your family schedules an intervention. When your family schedules an intervention, you end up in an institution with a large, angry roommate. When you have a large, angry roommate, he eats your candy bar. Don't let your large, angry roommate eat your candy bar. Transform your backup with EMC.
Welcome back, everybody. We are just about out of time, but fortunately, we're also just about ready to wrap this up. Well, as you have seen and heard, the EMC Backup Playbook clearly addresses both the biggest problems facing our customers and also has the vision to get them where they need to go. So the question is, how does our audience take this playbook and convert it into their own game plan? Well, for that, we give the honors and the ball to you, Michael, to take us over the goal line into the end zone.
Thanks a lot. So we believe that there are basically 3 plays that should be part of every customer's game plan. The first is implement the right disk-based backup solution. That's a purpose-built backup appliance. Get your backup team out of the penalty box, away from dealing with daily problems, and be able to think more strategically. In fact, it's the biggest step you can take towards a more worry-free backup environment. The second step is to go ahead and find your most difficult challenge. This might be around protecting virtual environments or protecting large databases or even protecting large network-attached storage appliances. And go solve that problem. In fact, challenge EMC to help you solve that problem. That way you'll build fans within the organization and you can begin to replicate that across the board. And then third, as you're doing that, start to add value-added services, right? These could be things like chargeback, replication for disaster recovery, long-term retention, begin to offer protection services to your remote offices and branch offices. Now you're starting to add value. You're starting to show backup like an IT as a service offering. And this is really where backup begins to become an MVP within the IT organization. Now, a lot to cover here, a lot of places I'd like to direct you to get some more information. We've got a great ebook we've created just for this event. You can go download on EMC.com, and while you're out there, check out the Backup and Recovery category page. There's more information there. You can actually get more information even on the EMC Community Network page, which is the page that brought you to this broadcast today. And finally, of course, you can reach out to any EMC sales representative or authorized partner to get an assessment, get going. So it's clear that we need to be calling an audible on backup and recovery.
Absolutely.
So game on.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. And well done, guys. Thanks, my panel of experts, Stephen Manley, Michael Wilkie, and Brian Babineau. Thanks, everybody, for watching. I'm Paul Garangelli. We'll see you next time on the next edition of Backup Game Day Show. Thanks for watching, everybody.